and ours, the highest value of life. Now we speak of your very human life and ours, the rock bottom absolute necessity of existence itself. Now what is the symbol which negates that necessity of existence itself? Well, it's very clear. It's the H-bomb. The H-bomb, which was on the cover of that review back in 1956. And I put man standing in front of the H-bomb. That was the beginning. Remember 1945 when the bomb went off at Hiroshima? Well, I'm old enough to remember that where I was and so forth, but a lot of you probably do not. But there was a psychic shock. A psychic shock. We went from war to annihilation. The human race was in danger. The human race became a plaintiff in a juridical sense. It was a plaintiff which had to negate the idea of not war, but the fact that it was in danger. And what did you need to do that? Well, I've been talking about that. We need law, world law, which negates, which represents humanity itself. And I've talked about that in terms of the Nuremberg Principles, which I hope you've read, and the ICC, the International Criminal Court, which has set up a crimes against humanity. Now, very few people understand what that means. What is a crime against humanity? Well, it's obviously a crime which is going to wipe out humanity. That's certainly a crime against humanity. But now it's in a court case. Now it's a statute in the ICC. But do you think that the judges in the ICC at The Hague are talking about Mr. Obama or the 9 heads of state who have their finger almost on the nuclear button, or Kim Jong-un, who has a couple of nuclear weapons in North Korea and is threatening now to eliminate the so-called peace treaty between North Korea and South Korea, etc., etc. No, that is not our problem. Our problem is that no symbol, and here's what I said in 1956, no symbol is as potent as the H-bomb with man standing in front of it to illustrate the absolute necessity of our times. And what is that necessity? It's too simple, my friends. And I've been preaching that and living that for 60 years. It's one world or none. One world or none. It's very difficult to comprehend what that means because, well, we say, well, humanity wiped out, never happened before. But yet there it is, the nuclear bomb is the destroyer of humanity, and that is a crime. That's a crime. And what do we do about crimes? We make laws against them, right? And that's what I've been talking about now ever since you listened to me. I appreciate your listening to me. But there's no court up there which is talking about the crime against humanity itself. That is your problem and my problem. No symbol, as I continue to read, no symbol is as potent as this to illustrate the absolute necessity of our times. One world or none. Forget your differences. You have no differences when it comes to the ultimate thing of life and death. There's no Jew, there's no Christian, there's no Muslim, there's no Shiite, there's no black, there's no white, there's no male, there's no female. No, because we are humans essentially. And that's our major ID. And if you don't ID yourself as that, and on an effective level, that is a legal level, then you're giving into the so-called divisions, which are the divisions which are exemplified by the nuclear bomb. What is this 28-year-old Kim Jong-un, what does he want? he wants to be recognized as a big deal. He says, look, Mr. Obama, you're a big deal. You've got 7,000 nuclear weapons. Mr. Netanyahu has 80 nuclear weapons at his fingertips and wants to bomb Iran. The Chinese have 300 nuclear weapons. And little me, we're a nation too. Hey, we want nuclear weapons, and we've got them now. So what should be the response? Well, the response was very simple. I mentioned it in my show 2 weeks ago. The Norwegian government called all the nations to Oslo and about the nuclear weaponry and said, and every nation, 130 nations showed up. Well, when I say nation showed up, a nation doesn't show up because a nation doesn't fiction, but leaders, heads of state, and diplomats of 130 nations arrived in Oslo, and they had a big conference, and they were all totally against nuclear. Now how can Mr. Obama and Mr. David Brown and Mr. Holland and Mr. Netanyahu go against 130 heads of state, their fellow heads of state, and say, no, 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 we're not going to give up our nuclear weapons? That's stupid. Well, because exactly right. The nation state is a carryover from another age, a very deceptive carryover, where the horse was the fastest means of transportation. The world was an agricultural world. It was non-technical. It was non-electronic, and certainly it was non-space, and so forth and so on. So you're living in two worlds, my friends. Now, why am I a world citizen? Why is this called world? Why am I called world citizen number one? Not because there's a number to world citizenship. We're all world citizen number one, but all we have to do is claim it. And claiming it means we're making a contract with each other. Don't you see that? You know, I'm talking to you. Anybody could listen to call in this streaming radio from Australia, from Cairo, from Boogaloo, etc. Listen to this voice and so forth. There's nothing between us. There's no distance between us. There's no frontier between us, artificial frontier. And yet you consider yourself as Egyptian, Australian, American, Afghanistan, etc., etc. It's all phony. Because when that bomb, if indeed when somebody pushes that nuclear button and that bomb starts spreading throughout the world, and it's possible, the Bulletin of Atomic Science say we're 5 minutes to midnight now, or maybe it's 3 minutes to midnight, I don't know, etc., and all the divisions that you thought you were disappear. And the body in which you inhabit is gone. And maybe the human race is gone. I know that, well, I'm not the only one who says this. It sounds prophetic, it's whatever, but Einstein was saying that right back in 1945. All the leaders, all the sages, all the gurus, all the masters are saying the same thing. No, if we don't get our trip together, and we are together, as I quote Nataraja Guru all the time, humanity is one, then we don't deserve to live, and we'll prove it. We'll prove it. You'll prove it. I keep saying, have you registered as a world citizen? Have you claimed to be a world citizen? I mean, why are you listening to me? There's no need to listen to me unless you yourself say, yeah, he's right. He's a world citizen, and I want to be, and I'm a world citizen, and I want to make peace in the world. Because anybody who claims to be a world citizen is making a legal contract. I'll explain that in a minute. A legal contract with every other person, human being, who's made the same claim. And the reason is very simple, because that's where law begins. That's called the inalienable right of the individual to claim his or her political allegiance. How do you think the governments start in the first place? They don't start with governors. They start with citizens. Why do you think citizens all over the world are rebelling? Because their governments, the national governments, don't recognize them, but they're not. They shouldn't be rebelling. They should be uniting, because we are united already. And that's that I continue with this letter, 1956 letter. Incidentally, this is in my book, Letters to World Citizens, which I hope some of you have read. It's got a lot of stuff in it. It says the bomb, the nuclear bomb, is of such intensity that most of us have shrunk from its full implications. That's true. We can't even conceive that the human race is going to be wiped out. Everything that we love, everything that we know, every person that we love, every child, and so forth is going to be wiped out. This is too incomprehensible to consider. And in turn, so categorical is the solution to this nemesis, so absolute in its necessity, that most of us, not being used to linking absolute moral values with our political life in terms of one world, have been virtually blinded by the necessity, by its necessity. In other words, the H-bomb. The H-bomb, and here's the final blow, the H-bomb is absolute or total in its physical power. And the United World Government, the world government which we founded back in September 4th, 1953, is absolute or total in its spiritual or qualitative power. And both meet with silence from the relativist public. It has stuck its head deep into the relativist sand. In other words, I'm Egyptian, I'm Jewish, I'm Israeli, I'm Afghanistan, etc., etc. I'm black, I'm white, I'm Christian, Jewish, or Muslim, etc. And this is the relativist sand I'm talking about. And cried even louder, my country, right or wrong. Not only is this moral and intellectual bankruptcy, but it is inverted instinct. All right, we have a guest tonight, a very interesting guest, and his name is, well, the name that he gives himself is Vipro. Vipro. Formerly, his name is Jose Vanegas Castro, born in Managua, Nicaragua, in the year 1978. And a civil war in his own country brought him to the United States, where he and some family members were granted political asylum based on his grandfather's work as a warden in a state prison. Now, Vibra is a student of life, incredible man. I've talked to him. He's amazing, got amazing brain. He's researched occult, esoteric, philosophy, civilizations, eschatology since the age of 19, in the hopes to answer the great question, why? And Vibro came into our office, I think he came into the office, and he registered as a world citizen. He's got his own streaming radio, live streaming radio, and I've listened to it. He's he's quoting some of my books. He's quoting my some of my reading from my books, actually, on his radio. And I said, look, why don't you come on my show and explain who you are, why you are, and what you think of this whole idea of world citizenship, because he's got his own ideas. So, Vibro, are you with us?
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, coming through.
Good deal.
Coming through great. Well, so I'm going to hand the mic over to you for a while and see what are your ideas now about the world and about world citizenship, and tell us and tell us all. You're on.
I want to say thank you so much, Gary, for the opportunity to speak with you and other potential world citizens or current world citizens. And thank you very much for your work. and all the sacrifices that you've made and you continue to make and will continue to make. Um, a little more about myself. Essentially, growing up, I had this sense and urgency of like with my upbringing and the situation that happened in Nicaragua. There was a lot of danger, and at that young of an age, it's an amazing feeling actually to undergo through such a traumatic experience and feel that overwhelming sense of danger and helplessness. Coming to the United States, though, however, it was a major change. I was the only Spanish non-English speaking student, and so I had to instantly learn the culture. I had to instantly learn the language. I can say that everyone was great with me. They were friendly. The teachers were very helpful. I can say that since I've been here since 6 years old. It's the American life. It's all that I know. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It's an ideology that I personally appreciate because had I been in Nicaragua, had I stayed there, who knows? I may not be alive. I see a lot of stuff that's happening in Syria. Luckily, as Gary mentions profusely, that we're interconnected now. The internet allows us to not have any excuses about this frontier and these nation states and these borders. I'm able to see pretty much as these incidents show up, someone uploads it from their iPhone or from their Android smartphone, and we're able to see these things occur, which is pretty amazing. So I'm able to see the things that are happening in Syria on different websites, and it's pretty atrocious to say the least. Mm-hmm. And I could only have introspection and notice that, wow, that could have been me. And in fact, were it not for those videos, I don't know if I would have had this conversation with my mother recently, because I said to her, "Thank you, you saved my life." I do know stories of in Nicaragua during that civil war, they were giving 12-year-olds AKs. So I'm well aware that this new paradigm that I was able to live enabled me to have this and seek a different way of life. So and as Gary was mentioning, dealing with eschatology and dealing with different philosophies and civilizations has enabled me to look at the world as a bigger picture, as pieces to puzzles, instead of what's cooked up in the media or what's said by who I call I guess would be a nationalist or a systemic person, someone that believes in whatever system that they're currently under. So, for example, here in the U.S., since it's a melting pot, we have patriots, constitutionalists, liberalists. I mean, the list goes on and on. And of course, you have different sects that are more, I guess you would call them fanatical or radical than others, even here in the U.S. So I just noticed that, it was kind of a very early wake-up call to see that depending on the side of the fence that you're on, will depend on the kind of life that you'll have. And since I grew up as a young child, I saw a third world nation where, we didn't have paved roads. We had rocks, big chunks of rocks or boulders in the middle of the road, and only big trucks would go over them if you're lucky. Or if you had a nice pickup truck, maybe you could go over those as well. But otherwise you'd have the main streets would be paved for the bus routes or for the transportation routes, things of that nature. So it was pretty much rural. And then I started educating myself on what really did happen in Nicaragua, and come to find out that it was an approach to civilize a nation. And I try to look at it that way because it's easier. I like to say that whatever helps you sleep at night is how we live our lives. So I think of things that helps me sleep at night better versus someone else, that as long as they live their life according to their own will, then they may think that they're living a righteous life as well. But it seems as if that to me, instead of thinking of a conspiracies or, bankers this, money that, because I'm well aware of conspiracy, anything about aliens, anything about the monarchy, theocracy. I just try to look at it from I guess like the word that you use is holistic, a bigger perspective, which it seems as to me, what I've concluded is that there's something that's guiding us towards reason from the very beginnings of life. And so that's what I'm seeing happening now. It seems as if we're being guided towards a new age where not the quote unquote new age movement. I don't even consider myself a new ager, but a new age where we can think logically, be rational and seek reason in a way to solve all our problems. And it seems a little bit far-fetched. It seems idealistic, but I'm a firm believer that world citizenship is the very first step in the next evolutionary process of mankind. And when I say that's the first step, it's because every world citizen has to make a conscious decision to join in that social contract, as Garry has said countless times, to agree that they're going to not only respect and abide by laws, respect everyone else's dignity, as we know in the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but also be active participants in this new paradigm that we all need to choose. And I think that's really the only way. I mean, and I can give many examples as to how world citizenship can help us advance. So, for example, I've always noticed universities, they have it all wrong. And if you study universities, and I'm actually a college graduate recently, as last summer. Coincidentally, around the time I came across your passport going across the border from Canada to the U.S., that's really what got me going, and I'll try and cover that shortly. But I've always noticed that there's a strict and certain way, a compulsory way of life, and I've disagreed with it. And I always wondered why there are such laws, why there are such methodologies that one culture accepts and another one doesn't. So those kinds of things have really interested me into the deeper meanings and aspects of life. So with universities, I'm sorry?
Let me get in here a moment. I'd like to ask you how you define the word citizen itself as a system of communal activity, citizen, and also and when you put world in front of citizen, what are you then acknowledging as far as your particular personal identity is within that context? And my second question would be then, citizenship is a code of conduct within the world context. And that represents then a new type government. Citizenship and government are corollaries. How would you respond to that? Because you've already declared yourself and registered yourself with the world government of world citizens. You've received your passport, and you've received your ID card, and you received your world citizen card. So I'd like you to talk to us about how you now recognize your identity within the context of the world community itself. Or do you?
I do. World citizen is an individual that is a active participant in their own life, but in the lives of a global community. And what they try and do is remember our three main principles, which is one value, one world, and one humanity. And if you think about them very deeply, then you'll be able to know that you have responsibilities and aligned with those rights as a world citizen, responsibilities to again, yourself and to the world, and even to the earth. I've made a video about that basically you just can't take from the earth since it's an organism, and you just can't take without caring for it as well. There has to be a, the golden mean applies with the earth, because there has to be that balance where you're ensuring its sustenance as it's ensuring your sustenance, your livelihood. So you're ensuring the livelihood of the earth. And I think that we've done a poor job looking at it as a whole. And it starts at the individual. So I think the world citizen, to be more concrete, is the actualization of the self, I think. It reminds me of the allegory of the cave. The person is inside the cave and he looks around and he sees himself shackled, and then he finally makes through the cave, and then he has to decide if he's going to go back and if he's going to try to explain it to others and that kind of thing. But also if he's going to go back to living in that cave, or going to go back to the awareness, which is being outside the cave, the awareness of a new identity. And that's what I think. I think the world citizenship is a new identity, a new awareness of the collective reasoning of one species.
Now, are you aware that because you have claimed yourself as a world citizen and you signed up as a world citizen, received documents pertaining to your world citizenship, that you are now in a civic contract on a global level with every other person who has done the same thing since 1956?
It's pretty awesome. I am aware of that. Yes, sir.
Okay, that leads to another question, because as you're well aware, and I know your personal history, that you are facing a problem with the Immigration Department of the United States government, as the millions of children who were brought into the United States by their parents when they were very young, and that became a problem with them because they were on the national level illegal, etc., or unidentified, etc., etc. But now you're to me a classic case, not a case, but an example of someone who has exercised your rights, your inalienable rights, which, and I've talked about the Ninth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution 100 times on this program, the inalienable rights to choose your own political allegiance. In other words, inalienable is the Ninth Amendment, which allowed the U.S. government of the Founding Fathers to choose a higher level of government, and has been impounded into the Declaration, into the Constitution, within the framework of the Bill of Rights. And that pertains, inalienable rights have nothing to do with the civic rights of a particular nation. They're the inalienable rights which the Declaration of Independence has claimed as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that protect these rights, governments are created among the citizens with the consent of the governed. So you're a good example to me of having done that and risen above the so-called immigration laws of the United States. And you can exercise your right to do that according to that Ninth Amendment. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, in fact, this was I'm going to put it to you as straight as I can. When I first came across your video, it was inspiring. You know, when you come across something new and you don't know what to think of it, it was a part of me thought it was a little troubling as well. The more I read about the world citizenship, and troubling because here I am. I've thought similarly, and I've never heard of this before, and I'm seeing the direction that the world is going, and yet this is not in the forefront. And troubling also in the sense that this actually shakes the foundations of the world, for lack of a better analogy. Like it's like nothing else out there, I don't think. I mean, other than, of course, a climatic holocaust of nuclear proportions, or you know, Mother Nature doing something. But when I started reading about and just immersing myself in any video that I could find of you, and then eventually I ended up buying your books, it all became too clear that you were onto something. That this is not just a pipe dream. It's not just a wishful thinking. That this is real, and it is the right way, the right path. And when I started seeing my own immigration status, that, you know, October of this year would be a time for me to renew. And the last few years, actually, I've been thinking about maybe becoming a U.S. citizen. Then I was like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to really become a world citizen? Is this something that I truly believe in? Am I going to continue looking for work? Am I going to continue going down this same paradigm? Or am I going to do something that finally makes me happy, something that I believe in? And that's why this has gotten my full support. With the renewing of my green card, I'd have to do it minimally by October of this year. But after becoming a world citizen in December, then I think that the only path for me is to not have my name affixed to any type of system until we have a system, or we have a new paradigm in place where, for example, Switzerland comes up with a cure for cancer, or they do something so great that it changes the world. And then that's when I could choose to become Swiss, or I can choose to become a U.S. citizen, or I can choose to become, you know, French. But until that stops and these countries stop with this anarchic lifestyle and this anarchic perpetuating of power, because that's what they're doing. They're fulfilling self-fulfilling prophecies, and they're also perpetuating to maintain their order, their power, rather, their control. So to me, the only sensible thing for me to do is to be stateless and to have my highest allegiance to world citizenship, just as you've done, because, you know, if we're at peace, there wouldn't be a need for us to argue. There wouldn't be a need for us to talk about peace, because we would have it. But it took people like you and other human rights activists and other, you know, humanitarians to actually look at the world and try and make it better. And obviously, it's because mankind, they haven't found it within inside themselves to be world citizens and act civilly and have civil discourse, but also work towards a better world. And I always like to say is there's no way we're going to start colonizing Mars if we're still warring here. It's just not. I mean, of course, we're only going to take that same energy to Mars and continue to war there. And yes, sir.
Tell me, are you familiar with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights?
I am. I try to read it periodically as much as I can. I think it's a great document. I call it a living document, because I hope that as we world citizens become grow in numbers, in other words, that we can either have a constitution or the UDHR can be expanded on or something like that. However way that we can return our own dignity and our own labor, fruits of our own labor, and become make the world a better place. I mean, I think that's part of the problem is that people are miserable. They're being overly taxed, they're being overly worked, and they're not taught to, or they're not everything works institutionally to ensure that the system continues its gears and continues propelling forward, whereas the purpose of humanity, I don't think, is at the forefront. And I think that the purpose of humanity is continuity, is being loving and compassionate, all those being a virtuous society, and we certainly don't have that yet. And I think that the UDHR helps us focus once again on those types of virtues.
Okay, you mentioned the green card. Okay, I brought that Declaration of Human Rights up because the nation state violates the mandates of the Declaration of Human Rights by imposing on individuals the right to work or the right not to work, etc., etc. But the Declaration of Human Rights on Article 23 says everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and to protection against unemployment. And the second article says everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work. And then it goes on. Number 3, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself and his family an existence worthy of human dignity, and supplemented, if but necessary, by other means of social protection. And finally, everyone has the right to form and to join trade unions for the protection of his interests. Now, you see, you call yourself stateless, and I'm stateless too. I gave up my nationality, as anybody who's listened to me knows. I've been stateless since May 25th, 1948, etc. And I was at Paris when this Declaration of Human Rights was proclaimed on the 10th of December, 1948, by the General Assembly of the United Nations. Now, the United Nations, of course, includes the United States. And at that moment in history, there were 55 member states of the United Nations. Now there's, I think, 100, there's almost 200, etc. So here we have a declaration, which is our declaration, human rights. That's us, has nothing to do with states. And therefore, we claim that our rights, and including the right to work, has been mandated by this article, as well as by all the other articles, and there are 30 of them. The will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government, etc. Well, that's us. That means the people are sovereign. Now, that word sovereignty is a key word because the nation state claims to be sovereign. Every single nation says this nation is sovereign. But that denies the fact that the people of the world, which consist of humanity itself, is the ultimate sovereign. So what you've done and what I've done is to say, yeah, we're members of the sovereign humanity. And therefore, if we need certain documents, like a passport or a birth certificate or an ID card or a world work permit, etc., we'll make them. We will make them because these are our rights. And we will defend them against all the powers that be, all the nation-state powers that still claim to be sovereign, etc. This is the great battle. Do you agree with this or not? What is your opinion?
I absolutely agree with you. It's a dichotomy because or a catch-22. On one hand, the nation state has to protect its own sovereignty. On the other hand, we're sovereign. So that's why we're always seeing, and I think that's probably why that in the media and I guess institutionalizing someone to be a patriot or be a nationalist or whatever does a good job of brainwashing people to accept the fact that they're giving up their right in order to have their security. And you can't have both and still have weapons of mass destruction and have militaries that not only train for war, they perpetuate the wars. So essentially what it boils down to is they're making the planet they're giving protection to the planet, which is good. But as a nation state system that's currently in rule, they're doing more harm than good, because it's that bread and butter game or guns and butter game that is very old and antiquated. And instead of raising children, as you've mentioned in one of your chats or several of your chats, that there's a school in India, I believe, that they're teaching them from jump to be world citizens, that they are world citizens. And that's the paradigm shift that we need. We need to let go of the old and move forward with humanity if we have any hope. As you say, that this us versus them mentality, this one to many mentality, is not going to be around forever, and it's not going to last forever, because here we are, we have a world government of world citizens returning that sovereignty to who? To the people. So that means it's the many now, and that's what I try and talk about on my channel, is to try and help people cultivate that very important philosophy that they are sovereign, but they also have a responsibility to the world and to themselves to be active participants, because I think that's the key. Just like you've done for 60+ years, just like I have just recently started doing, and I intend on pushing forward as well, and many others with that fight for human rights and that are world citizens or what have you, that they are active participants. And unless you engage to make that change is not going to come, and this system is going to continue to wreak havoc, unfortunately, and play this document game and this paper game of you can't travel here because you don't have the right passport, or you need to show ID for this and that and the other. And all that I see that the world government of world citizens has done through the WSA is extended that paper game to enable to use those same laws against this warlord, this warlord system, this chaotic realm that we currently live in, to enable the individuals to be protected, and for them to seek their own happiness and to seek the betterment of mankind. So
well, I think you've defined actually the paradox that we face, because you mentioned that the nation state is sovereign, but as long as there's no world sovereignty, then the nation state faces a condition of anarchy between their sovereignty and so forth, and that anarchy is the breeding ground of war. So you can say, well, if you're a citizen of a city, that city has a sovereignty because there are codes of conduct, there's a mayor, there's a city council, and so forth. So that's a lower level of sovereignty. And then you have a larger framework of sovereignty called the state, and the state then takes care of the parks and so forth, and other areas. And then you have the nation, and the nation then takes care of a larger framework, but then it stops. And yet we're living in a world community, as you well know, that you can get around in 2 days, send a message around in nanoseconds, et cetera, et cetera. So where is the sovereignty beyond the nation? That is what we are filling in. That is what humanity means. That is the reality today that we each have to face if we want to survive, if we want to justify our life. And that's where world citizenship, the word world put onto a citizenship, represents that final sovereignty. We're not cosmic citizens. We're not on Mars yet. We're not on outer space. We haven't colonized the moon, et cetera, which could be in the next 10 years, 50, 100, 1,000 years. We're not sure. But we're at that paradigm shift, as you pointed out, where we must exercise sovereignty on the top level, which means placing world in front of citizenship, claiming it and mandating it and acting on it and defending it with our very lives. Don't you agree?
I do. And the reason that I say that world citizenship is the first step, if I may elaborate, is that in my worldview, we should have already been here. But it took people like Garry to remind us of our own humanity. And that right there is profound, because that will allow the individual to see that, hey, you know what? It's right. It's true. I don't believe in murder. I don't believe in killing. I don't believe in war. I don't believe in, someone telling me that I can go here or go there. But they have to understand why they accept it, why they tolerate, and they have to know that there's an alternative. I believe that if the individual is given the ability to seek reason with knowledge, information, such as we see with the internet, those shackles in their mind, like the allegory of the cave, will become loose. And I think that that's what it takes, is the individual needs to be guided towards an alternate path, an alternate lifestyle. And I think that's what World Citizen allows us to do. And I really think that with the internet, we can self-teach each other. We can, trade freely with each other, and, have open and honest discourse about local issues, about personal issues, about world issues, and then do the info sets as has been described by your books, or Stafford Beers described in his Cybernetics, that allows us to actually come up with real world solutions instead of bitch and gripe and not do anything about it. I mean, not doing anything about it is as useless as seeing it happen. And,
right.
And so with this worldview that I have, it kind of disappoints me on one hand that we're not already all world citizens, that we're not already living and teaching each other how to be a virtuous and wholesome individual, and how to value things that actually are important and that are life-changing. And part of what we agree on in our social contract as world citizens is in the credo it says we need to embrace and share those cultures, and it's sad that we don't do that, because we want to sit there and fight about very different ideologies, whether it has to do with religion or whether it has to do with money, it has to do with traditionalism, and that's why. On the other hand, I can say that it's exciting because, I get to be a part of it. I got to see and get to know you and read your information and literature, and hopefully meet a lot more world citizens, and hopefully be around where, we are the majority, and then the entire world will eventually be world citizens, or they can be whatever. They can call themselves cosmopolites, as long as they adhere to world law and the World Court of Human Rights that I hope to be implemented in the very near future, because people need to know that it's criminal to go around and kill and perpetuate war, even if it's to perpetuate or to create and establish democracy or to set up an infrastructure, that these things, that war, the monetary system, energy, all these things it's a breeding ground for greed and anarchy, when we should already come together and fix issues like war, outlaw war, and make free energy, so that way, someone has the ability to shower and cook and boil water and hygiene, in a remote village, and have access to the internet. This is real dignity that I wish we all should have, we all could have, and we have the mind, we have the motivation and the ability, the potential to do these things now, and it darkens my door to know that it's not happening, because
Okay.
Yep.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. We're talking with Vibro, who is a philosopher. He's a student of cybernetics, transhumanism, technology, privacy, etc. And I'm interested in his when he brings in cybernetics. That's one of my favorite words, and we're going to talk about that in the next hour. So let's take a break now. And we'll be back at the top of the hour.
Your choice.
Garry Davis, World Citizenship
Talk Radio, the new Global Radio Alliance. Okay, guys, we're clear.
Very good.
Got 4 minutes, Gary.
All right.
4.5 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to take a leak.
Okay.
Nice work, Skybo.
Oh, thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. Pleasure to be with you.
Yep, man, this is a goodie. I'm glad I decided to do the show tonight. We'll talk about your soul system. You can talk about your soulsystem.com, your personal website, etc., etc.
Yes, sir.
And you might mention also the interview with David.
Okay.
David, is that available? Is that up?
Yes, sir. It's on the website. It automatically, after I'm done broadcasting, it goes on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we talked a lot, didn't we, in an hour? My God.
Yeah, that flew. That was very enjoyable.
Have you read my letter? Do you have my book, Letters to World Citizens?
I have all of them except for World Peace is You, or something like that. The ebook. That's the only one I'm missing. And that one in your book for your mother, Hilda, I believe.
Well, this book is a compilation of all my letters written in World Citizen News. And I think you'll be interested in the book itself. It's not read by many people, I must say. And I talk in that opening letter in Values magazine. I talk about the dialectical key. Very few people understand the word dialectics. The dialectical key, till now the common social contract, which links you geodialectically. That word geodialectics was coined by my teacher, Guru Nataraja, actually, in his Memorandum on World Government. It's a fascinating document. It's one of our main documents on our website, the Memorandum on World Government, geodialectics.
I've read it.
You've read it? Good.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, I'm very proud of this book.
I intend on reading all the books, and so what I've been trying to get my scruples about just making sure that the channel goes appropriate to helping people instead of clouding their mind, because that's easy to do with as much information and misinformation that we have here in this technical age. So I try and take it very serious and try to give an open-minded point of view, as tough as that is to do.
You see, I'm going to talk about in this next hour how geodialectics applies to national soldiery and world police force. See, the counterbalance to national soldiery is a world police force, which is the dialectical counterpart to it's the exponent of law, and that's the way you neutralize it. If we have the world, let's see, what is it called? The
Sovereign Order of the World Guard?
Yeah, the World Guards, the Sovereign Order of World Guards. Are you familiar with that?
I am. I signed up for them as well. So
there's a Yahoo group, and we have a lot of members. And we thought that I'm going to really talk about this because
2.5 minutes, Gary.
How long?
2.5 minutes. If you're going to pee, you better hurry.
Okay. No. I'm all right.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an important subject because we're always talking about national armies, national armies, national armies. What's the counterpart to national armies? Well, it's the world police force. World policeman. And the world policeman then is part of a world judiciary, and that is mandated by, of course, Article 6 to 11 of the Declaration of Human Rights. So it's all there. The formula is sitting there waiting for us to put it together. That's what I want to talk about in the next hour. You familiar with that?
I am eager to see all this unfold. I do personally feel that, you know, if we were peaceful, we would already be peaceful, like I said before. So I don't think that the transition is going to be very peaceful. And it's unfortunate because we should have the rationale, we should have the mind to say and agree, hey, this is right for now, and it's right for the future. But instead, we have different groups that are springing about around the world, such as the English Defense League, and then the Golden Fleece in Greece, and we have different religious organizations that are bringing up their groups, and that they're basically inciting the.
Hold on, Vibro. We're coming up to the hour.
Sure.
We're coming up to our. Hold on. There, you can bring all that together. How much time, Race?
This event will be held at the Chateau Elan Hotel
45
and
seconds,
Center
Gary.
in beautiful Sea Breeze. www.starwatchusa.com.
Okay, Gary, stand by.
Okay.
We go live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
And we're back. We're back with Vibro, who believes firmly in the age of reason is upon us. Time for a new paradigm shift. He's a world citizen, and he's talked about in his personal bio here that I've got in front of me. His philosophy, cybernetics. I mentioned cybernetics in former shows about the World's Integrity Project, which is a new method of communicating via a system in which everybody has a voice, and using the internet And if you want to find out what that's about, you go to our website, World's Integrity Project, using the new system of cybernetics. Cybernetics is the science of organizing complexity. And the world has collapsed in on itself since the 18th century. The world is much too complex for a particular or a group of nation states to even cope with the complexity. So that's why it's become dysfunctional. And what is dysfunctional? It means it goes to war. It is a war machine. And that is the enemy of humanity, this dysfunctional war machine, which we see now killing people all over the world and with no overall solution except the one that we perpetuate. So back with Vibro, and I'm very interested in bringing up cybernetics, Vibro, because I was a student of Stafford Beer. Stafford Beer was the president of the General Systems, World Systems of Cybernetics, and designed a system using Bucky Fuller's geodesic dome, which is an incredible structure, 15 triangles put together. And when you use that dome as a kind of a communication tool, then you can put 15 people around the dome, throw a question in the middle, and then all the minds assigned to that dome are then focused on that particular question. And the question that we are asking you, everybody listening to me, is how can we, as sovereign world citizens, govern our world? How can we, as sovereign world citizens, govern our world? Because if you think about it, we are the governors. That's what sovereignty means. Sovereignty means that we are humanity, and humanity is sovereign or whole, and therefore sovereignty is passed from the nation-state system historically to humanity. But that means you and me as human beings within a system of communication. And of course, I'm talking into a microphone. Anybody can listen to me. And as I mentioned 100 times, thousands of kids, millions of kids are sitting in front of computers now, going online. The internet has no frontiers, and therefore cybernetics has become a full-fledged science which allows us then to communicate and make known our wishes globally and instantaneously based upon the Declaration of Human Rights. So, Vibro, here we are. What is your definition of cybernetics? How come you use that in your dialogue, in your bio?
Cybernetics, I first came across it just researching life, and it came. It turned out that one of the earliest people to coin that phrase, it was a mathematician named Norbert Wiener. And so I ended up getting 3 of his books because I wanted to know how cybernetics could influence our lives. And it turns out that it's a systemic approach to understanding feedback mechanisms in biological and non-biological systems. So,
right.
So for example, biological could be a human being, it could be an animal, it could be a plant, or non-biological could be a computer, a robot, anything. And because to me, what I ended up noticing during all my research and life studies, that everything pretty much is a system. There's a saying in the occult, very famous saying, "As above, so below." And if you notice, I mean, look at our bodies, we have organs. Many organs, they work hand in hand to ensure the fact that we're alive, to ensure our livelihood, to ensure that we remain healthy and things of that nature. But they also can be the death of us, and that's if we don't take care of them, and there are many different factors involved. So if you look at it simply from that point of view, a computer can malfunction as well, and all these little parts affect one another. And if one thing is malfunctioning, it can prevent it from properly working, or it can just perform a specific task. So with cybernetics, to me, I think it's important because the more we understand how these feedback mechanisms are used for information sharing, then
Right.
we can know how we can use cybernetics or a system to better and influence the whole. So that's parts of a whole is the way I like to see it. That cybernetics kind of gives you a magnifying glass to it, and that's why I'm a big proponent of the internet. There are a lot of laws that are trying to be passed back and forth to censor the internet, and for cybernetics to work properly, to teach us about ourselves, and to put in proper mechanisms that helps constrain. Um, but it kind of like a constraint would be, for example, a dam. A dam is a constraint that we put to ensure that the water doesn't flood a certain area or region, or divides the water and makes sure that one half gets it, the other half gets the other, that kind of thing. It ensures the flow, in other words. So that's the positive side that cybernetics does. And if we are to learn and grow as an extension of ourselves, if that's what the internet is, the internet is a true extension of ourselves, then we're not going to be able to properly advance. And that's why I always say that world citizenship is the first step into the next evolution. And when I mean evolution, I literally mean the next human being, just like in the scale of the caveman, and as he goes from being upright and walking, and eventually he's a human. We're at the next human phase, I believe. And Buckminster Fuller brings it up that there's chemical compounds that were around, that were known before World War I, were about 10,000. After World War II, there were over 1 million. And he says now, his last lecture was, I believe, in the, I'm not really sure, I think it was the 80s. But he was saying that it's grown exponentially, and we don't even know the count. And I believe, just as he mentioned, that's what's helping in our evolution there. It's changing our DNA, it's changing our chemistry, various things. You can say it's design, you can say it's different organisms from space, panspermia, whatever, receiving from space. But definitely we are, I believe firmly that we are evolving once again. And unless we use different systems approaches like cybernetics, and we understand what that feedback, and we take that research to enhance and better society, then we're only going to spin our wheels when we can be making so much more progress in our evolution, in our reaching towards the stars, as the world flag shows, the guy in the middle pointing towards the stars. And I believe that's one of the purposes of being alive, is being the human experience, is to teach and learn and grow and continue going, go further. I mean, and the reason it's self-explanatory why I believe that is because our brains function, our lungs function, and our hearts function. All three of these things function without my control. There's nothing I can do to stop it other than harming myself, obviously. But there's nothing that I can do to prevent these three things from keeping me alive. So obviously something wants me to live. That's pretty
Right.
profound.
I mention all the time that we spend 1/3 of our life asleep, and we can't help that. It's just instinctive. We got to go to sleep to regain the energy, which allows us to function the other two-thirds of our life. And when you talk about your heart, of course, your heart still continues to beat while you're asleep, and that's a good point you make. So these things are instinctual and they're universal,
Absolutely.
and no one can deny them. So that's where you and I are, are meeting one-on-one. I'm thinking of these poor guys who are coming back from wars. I read in today's New York Times an article by Friedman that the soldiers have been given drugs. It's called the war on drugs. Very interesting thing. To dose soldiers with antipsychotic drugs during combat. Can you imagine the insidious nature of that? In other words, to allow these men who are already expendable and who have been through boot camp and so forth and think that they're defending the nation-state system, to have to put them into a drug state in order for them to go out and do the killing. This is an incredible article. I would like everybody to read it, what is happening. And, of course, the depleted uranium, which has flooded the Near East with the Iraq War and so forth, is another insidious problem which the nation-state system has thrust upon humanity, etc., etc. But then I wonder about people like you who are now within a nation-state which is the largest military might in the whole world, and claiming to be a world citizen, and from a tiny little country called Nicaragua, who claimed you at birth, actually, by definition, and so forth, and gave you a Nicaraguan birth certificate, what links you, according to them, to that state. So the U.S. government can say, you're not a national citizen, you're here illegally, and we're going to send you back to where you came from. Well, no, wait. You, in the meantime, have said, wait a minute. I was born from my mother's womb into the world, and just because it's at this point, nationalistically called Nicaragua, doesn't mean that I could have to accept that. I've accepted to be a world citizen. I've claimed to be a world citizen. That's my right, my inalienable right to identify myself. And therefore, I've been issued a world birth certificate, which is based upon Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, and then you think of all the millions of others like yourself who were brought into the United States at some point and have been given some kind of phony identification status that the United States Congress doesn't know what to do about, et cetera, et cetera. You see the problem here, that the people have not really recognized that they have the right to ID themselves. That is the story of my life, Vibro. That I figured that out when I was 26 years old after World War II and said, I'm not going to play the nation-state game. I am claiming I'm taking the little sovereignty I possess as a human being, and I'm putting it into a world community, a world government.
And I think, if I may, I was just going to say that, and I think that because you were able to have the awareness of what sovereignty is and what it means to you, is what got you going in that direction. And I think that's really the key that unlocks all of it. And I was talking to David about that. He was nice enough to give me an interview, David Gallup, WSA president. And we spoke about human rights and using the passport, and he covered sovereignty very well. So if anyone listening has the moment to go check out the interview, just type WSA President David Gallup, and it should come up on my channel on YouTube. And he answers a lot of those questions, and he focuses a good bit of energy on sovereignty and why that's important and why that matters to world citizens. And I think that's what it's going to take, is for people to realize what sovereignty means, what it means to them, and what their role is in life. And like I say, world citizenship is the first step. So if you sign up as a world citizen, at that point, then you can see what your passion is. I mean, your passion could be music, and who knows, you can come up with a new jingle for world citizens. You never know, or make music strictly for world citizenship, and maybe donate some of that to the World Refugee Fund, which will be a really good cause, because it helps document people that don't have the ability to, for whatever reasons, to document themselves, because there are costs related to the documentation, mainly to ensure that the legal team is running, mainly to ensure that the documents are printed and the equipment is running, all the staff involved. So it's not a lost cause. It's a very good cause. But that's what I mean about that. You know, if we could only move past this, you know, I'm an American, or I'm Israeli, or I'm Sudanese. I mean, then we can see that, you know, you're not just that. You're much more than that. You're an individual that has sovereignty, meaning total authority over their own lives and their livelihood, but also has that sovereignty comes with responsibilities to yourself and to others. I try and stress that, because you just
let me stop you for a minute, because you made a statement which I deny. You say, if we could move past. So you're talking then about the future, but the future is now. We are past it. See, that's my whole point.
Right. We
are already past it. And we don't have to move. You can't, the future never happens. The future never comes. You see, that's what people don't understand. In fact, the other day I was praised by Arthur Kanigis, who was doing the documentary on me about One World, that a Japanese technician has taken the Google Earth and put it into a framework so that you can look at it in real time as if you're standing outside in space. It's an amazing visual experience. In other words, you can be in space looking at your world in real time, and you can turn it, and you can enlarge it, and so forth and so on. And there you are in space. Well, talk about identity. We are already there in space, and so forth. And that's what Bucky Fuller used to say. You know, we're star people already. You see, that's what people don't realize. We are there now. We are it now. And no one can deny it. That's what I was going to do a whole program, that word identity. And I keep saying that the founding fathers of the United States government, 55, got together before the government was established and identified themselves as United States citizens, and there wasn't even a government there. They took it out of their own head. It's old Tom Paine, my favorite mentor. Tom Paine said, "My country is the world. My country is the world," and that's it. You don't have to go to the future. It is now. and everybody knows it, and keep saying you can get around the world in 2 days and send a message around in nanoseconds, and we're all doing it. We're in a technological one world, electronic one world, nuclear one world, space one world situation now. And the nation state is disorganized and dysfunctional. And the proof of that is that it is a war machine. How can you give your allegiance to it? How can you say, I'm loyal to the United States of America, when the United States of America has more armaments than every other nation combined, and can wipe out every vestige of human human matter and all the other animals on the world in one nuclear blow? How can you give your allegiance to that and go along with that? See, that's the meaning of world citizenship. It is a revolutionary concept. It is what you call a primal shift. You said it in the new paradigm rather. We're using that phrase all the time. And the evidence of that, one of the horrible evidences of that, is that these soldiers coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq and so forth, they are finished. They have been considered expendable. They have killed other people. They can't get rid of that hole in their soul. They can't cope with themselves, and there are 20 of them every day committing suicide because they can't cope, you see. So don't use the future. It's now that you have to be a world citizen, not in the future. You're claiming it now.
I agree with you, Gary. I think that I was stating the fact that we have not collectively made that conscious effort or the conscious awareness of deciding to be world citizens, and the fact that I hope it doesn't happen, but if World War III does happen, then it'll be proof that we did nothing to stop it.
Exactly.
So, and although let's just say 100 years from now, I firmly believe we will all be world citizens. And if you're born, let's say year 101, 100 years and one after all this takes place, if you're born in that time, then you'll be born into this new paradigm, this new system as world citizen, and you won't have to make that conscious decision because that's what you'll know. It'll be instituted from day one. But because we haven't collectively, it's like I said, it's taken people like you to toe the line to be on the forefront of world citizenship and reminding us what we should have already known, what we should have already been born into. Then individuals don't know that they have that choice. And I really believe that the propaganda machine, the war machine, all these systems that come together to perpetuate that mentality and keep people divided, keep people controlled with their minds, is such a force to be reckoned with, that unless they are individuals seek, unless they search, unless they truly want that new way, they're not going to find you, Gary. They're not going to know about world passports and world citizenship and the millennia. They're not going to know of it because it's ingrained in them to seek that 9-to-5 job, to become a computer programmer, or to become whatever, just to keep going that pyramid game, that continual, the one-to-many game. And
you see, I don't believe it. What you just said, I'm not concerned with how many people know. I know it. The world revolves around me. It revolves around you, etc., etc. It's individuals that change the world. As Bucky Fuller said, if you want to change the world, don't fight the existing reality. Make a new reality, and the existing reality becomes obsolete. Steve Jobs didn't care about anybody knowing whether an iPhone would work or not. He went into his laboratory and he closed the door and he experimented with it and he made it. And it came out and suddenly the world was paying attention to him. He changed the world. The guy who made the electron microchip changed the world. The computers used to be with these big fluorescent tubes and so forth and so on. He said, let's change the world. It's tool designers that change the world. Make a better tool and you change the world. You don't have to go out and proselytize and get everybody to be a world citizen. You know, they'll follow you. Make a better mousetrap and you'll change the world.
I agree. But just so I can elaborate, I asked David Gallup this question. When are we going to see the World Court of Human Rights, and when is war going to be outlawed? And his answer was what kind of aligns with what I'm saying, is that, well, world citizenship, that's the first step, getting world citizenship out there, so that way people know that they can claim that. And so I see your point definitely, that if you accept the new way, then that's exactly how it's going to be. But if you're stuck being double-minded or undecided or accepting the old way, then that's the mentality that you'll have. So I'm looking at it from a perspective that if things continue going this way and world citizenship is not on the forefront, then who are we going to blame for the atrocities that are going to come down the pipe?
But that's not you. That's a question you can't answer, you see.
Right.
You can't answer. Now, when I declared the World Court of Human Rights on June 10th, 1972, it was in front of about 150 people in a little hotel outside of Mulhouse, France, and we declared the World Court of Human Rights. These people were representatives of the world government. They were all world citizens. Now, you say, wait a minute, you only had 100 people there? Yeah, well, that's all we had. And yet we claimed it. And then we had a man sitting there, one of the leading jurists of the world, actually, named Louis Kuttner. And I brought him in from Chicago. And because Louis Kuttner was one of the greatest experts on habeas corpus. Now, habeas corpus goes back to the Magna Carta, when the Baron said that the king could not put people away without a trial. And that was 1215 AD. And habeas corpus has been a sacred principle throughout jurisprudence, continually saying that the leaders of states cannot put people away without a trial. It's a sacred legal principle. And Louis Kuttner had written a book saying we have to take that principle and raise it to the global level. And we'll call it World Habeas Corpus. And I advise any jurist who's listening to me, or lawyer, or whoever's interested in law, to buy that book, because that confirms an Article 9 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which I've got it right here. Hold on one sec. Which talks about habeas corpus, and it's Article 9, and I've said this 1,000 times on this program. Article 9 reads, "No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile." Now, Vibro, that's not the future. That came out on the 10th of December, 1948, almost 65 years ago. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary detention or arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. And where did it come from? It came from the General Assembly of the United Nations. And who composed the United Nations? The very nations that were violating the arbitrary detention, and especially the United States of America. etc. Well, what do we do about that? Here, the United States has already signed this Declaration of Human Rights, and that means us. And if we don't claim it, then we deserve to be put away without detention. And that's a law which has just been passed, the National Control Authorization Act, etc. Look how far we've gone, the nation-state system, and all because of a phony war called the War on Terrorism. And we all know that. It's been exposed as phony, etc., etc. So we're at the end of the nation-state system. And the nation-state has mandated us to defend our rights according to our human rights, but that means we have to ID ourselves as human beings, which we are anyway, as we come out of our mother's womb.
And
so
that's just it. I think that's all that it takes is the individual claiming their rights, just as you've been saying forever and ever and ever. And until they do, unfortunately, I believe that the nation-state system is going to try to make their last push to maintain their rule over people. I'm thankful for the WSA and their legal department because I believe, I know that if something were to go array with me.
Wait, I'm going to stop you here.
Sure.
You used the word believe twice.
Okay.
And then you changed it suddenly to I know. Do you understand what you've just done? I'm not talking about beliefs when I talk about human rights. I'm talking about knowledge. And I agree that your brain plays a trick on you when it uses that word believe.
Right.
Because believe is not knowledge.
Right.
Believe is not the truth. Believe is faith, etc. Our brain plays a trick on us all the time when we say, well, we believe this, we believe that, and so forth and so on, which means we don't know. You see, if you go back to the ancient Greeks or any of the sages throughout history like Tom Paine or Schopenhauer and so forth, they don't talk about belief. Tom Paine says, my country is the world. Schopenhauer says, call yourself a world citizen. Jesus Christ says, do unto others as you would they do unto you. They're not talking about belief. They say, your God, Father is in heaven. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. You know, we just passed Easter Sunday and so forth. The Lord's Prayer, everybody should read the Lord's Prayer. I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Jew, I'm not a Muslim, but the Lord's Prayer is a magnificent prayer. You know, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, etc. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. These are fantastic words. Thine is the kingdom. Now, don't believe me, accept it now. You see? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sure. No, I appreciate the correction, but I mean, I'm glad that you're exposing my lack of knowledge and confidence. That's one of the things that I've tried to do with my channel is share my journey as a world citizens with the world, because I firmly believe in it. But you can definitely tell the massive brainwashing that has taken place. You know, that I'm sure everyone struggles with if they've either considered world citizenship or have heard of it, or the world passport, traveling freely. I mean, that kind of stuff is exciting, but you know, to make that leap and say, yeah, I want to be in a social contract with the entire world, that's a chasm that could make people, could worry people or could confuse people. And but yeah, I definitely am still learning about this. And
forget people. You are the center of the world. The world revolves around you. If you didn't exist, the world would not exist. So there's two words which you cannot deny. You know what they are, I guess. The two words which you cannot deny are the words I am.
I am.
You don't have to believe I am. You are. I am. Think of that when your brain plays that little trick on you about belief. And when you become the example, you see, that's another thing. You become the example, and people want to know why you call yourself world citizen. Then you've got an audience. And then you say, well, because we have a contract. I'm a man who believes, who accepts the world law as such, as a given. There's a contract between me and humanity. And just as there's a contract between me and the citizen and the state I live in, or the community I live in, these are contracts, these are codes of conduct, etc. I don't have to believe that I should stop at the red light when it's red, when I drive a car. I know I have to stop at the red light or I'm breaking the law. There's no belief that that red means stop. No, it means stop, period. And that green means go. That's a code of conduct. It's a very simple example of world law. You can be anywhere in the world, and everybody stops at the red light because we fictionalize the idea of red as stop. That's not a belief. These are codes of conduct. And you learn those codes right from the ground up, right from the baby up. You learn them in your community. You learn them in your family. Be fair. Don't hit Johnny. You know, ID yourself. Love, 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 etc. Anyway, I'm.
No, you're fine. It's you're what you think on the highest level, and that's important because I think that's what we should all do. We should all think and quit thinking about these minor things and this consensus-based thinking about what divides us. Instead of, we should think about what brings us together and how we can maintain our livelihood and make it better, not just maintain it, but enhance our lives.
You see, that's what this documentary is going to portray. That it's called "My Country is the World, and the World is My Stage." Now, if you put those two phrases together, they express the entire philosophy. My country is the world, my country. I don't have to believe it, I'm accepting it. But what is the world? The world is a big stage that we're on. And who are we on that stage? Well, we have our parts to play. We're all actors and actresses and so forth and so on. And this is a new identity. And that's why world citizenship is like, you know, a big act, a big theatrical act and so forth. I hope this show is going to come out in May. They're editing it now and so forth. And Arthur Kennegas has been on this show a couple of times. And what it does, you know, he says he's a producer, he's a film producer and a documentalist, and he says, this is a story. Your whole life is a story. And stories are very important to teach people. That's what films are all about. And you've never had a film about you, Garry, so he's bought the rights to my story, and he's produced this documentary. Actually, you can see a 5-minute trailer on it on the homepage of our website, www.worldservice.org, etc., etc. But so it's a show business. I tell everybody, look, what's my profession? My profession is acting. I'm an actor. I was trained as an actor. I've had 4 Broadway shows, and then suddenly World War II comes along, and suddenly I'm acting in another theater as a killer, as a B-17 bomber pilot. Well, this is not who I really am, so that forced me to ID myself afterwards. And there's a whole story about this and so forth. But we all have to do the same thing. We all have to recognize, hey, what is that? What do I have to do with a nuclear bomb? How do I ID myself in front of this reality, which I can't deny, called the nuclear bomb? And everybody has to face that. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think. I don't care what your color of skin is or what your gender is and so forth. That is your problem. And that problem came along not because you had anything to do with it, but because at the end of World War II, they had all those nuclear, the plutonium, they didn't know what to do with it, et cetera, et cetera. And we all know that story. So the nation state dysfunctional 18th century game continued. And that's where we are now. And that's why I'm talking to you, and that's why I'm very happy you're on my show as a registered world citizen. So thank you very much for that. But I hope this has been an interesting discussion. You're very intelligent, and I hope, we're going to defend you, the world government. You're one of us now. You're a citizen of the world government. No matter what happens vis-a-vis you and any other government, you are on our team, and we can defend you, and we have to win because the world government is sovereign and the United States is not. The United States has given up its sovereignty by signing the Declaration of Human Rights. See, that's what this court is all about. That's what the World Court of Human Rights is all about. That's the missing link here. And I keep saying this in my other shows. Nuremberg came along after World War II and talked about, for the first time in jurisprudence, crimes against humanity. Think of that. Crime. What is a crime against humanity? Has anybody thought really about a crime against humanity? And then along comes, well, that court was simply to get the Nazis and to condemn them and so forth. Then along comes the International Criminal Court, and they take that very same indictable offense, crimes against humanity, and puts it in its statute, in the statute of the International Criminal Court at The Hague, which has 15 people sitting up there in their robes, getting paid a lot of money, adjudicating crimes against humanity. Now, what are they defending? They're defending humanity. But wait a minute. Is humanity a plaintiff? Humanity's never been used as a plaintiff before in judicial history, etc. Nobody figures this out, Vibro. And yet crimes against humanity is obviously nuclear war. No matter who it is, no matter what small nation, no matter what man, woman, child, whatever, it's a crime against humanity. So now you say, well, where is the court? Well, it's like Steve Jobs, he had to put that thing together, the I thing. We got to put it together. There are 846 Supreme Court judges, national Supreme Court judges, that have come to City Montessori School every December and have given their support to world law.
That's awesome.
World law. In other words, not just world law, but enforceable world law. And that means a court. These are Supreme Court judges, you see. Now, there's hundreds of thousands. I don't know how many. There's a whole group of women. It's called the International Jurists of Women and so forth, who are also Supreme Court. There's no judge who can say we're not against world law. And they're waiting, sitting there, twiddling their thumbs, waiting to be called into service. And that's what we're doing. That's the new, what shall I say, creation. If the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court were created, and every local court was created, then what's to stop us from creating our own court, the World Court of Human Rights, enforceable world law? That's the last step. And then what do we do when we get it together? We immediately make an injunction and we outlaw war.
That's an incredible statement, and I'm excited for it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it
See,
because
yeah, we the people are sovereign. We the people can't afford World War III, right?
no, we cannot.
Well, then that's where your world citizenship becomes a dynamic power play, because you can say to anybody in the world, all your friends, everybody you meet, no, I'm sorry, you and I have to get together. We are the sovereign human race, and we cannot afford World War III. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what your color of skin or whatever etc. All this is irrelevant to survival. And that's the prime shift. That's the paradigm shift today. That's where consciousness has to become dominant. World consciousness. And that's what the World Court of Human Rights, we've already got the statute. Lewis Cutler was already promoted, or not promoted, but I appointed him as Chief Justice of this court. In my book, World Government Ready or Not, there's a chapter called How World Government Works. It's called World Government Ready or Not. It's a 400-pager. And a chapter, How World Government Works. And one of the chapters is how this court worked. In a very, very interesting case, again, Idi Amin. Idi Amin, who had condemned a journalist, an English journalist, to death.
From Uganda.
Yeah, have you read that?
Yeah, we spoke on the phone, and you suggested I read that, and it turns out that you guys saved his life. If it weren't for your petitions, then who knows? Who knows what would have happened to him? But yeah, that's a pretty awesome story.
Well, there it is. You see, it's a tool. It's a tool that we have to develop. We have a very important lawyer here, Mark Ottinger, who's on our team. He works for the Vermont government, etc. And he is really very, very excited about developing the World Court of Human Rights. And another dear friend of mine is Rufus King III. And Rufus King was the judge, the district judge, first district judge in Washington, D.C. for the district court. And his father, Rufus King Sr., was a dear friend of mine whom I met on the steps of the Palais de Chaillot in 1948, and he had already founded or written a world constitution, and all the Bill of Rights and so forth and so on, was ready to put it together. See, world constitutions are a dime a dozen. There's books written about world constitutions. There's nothing new about them. Clark and Sohn wrote a book about a world constitution, and very famous jurists have been writing about world constitutions. So what's the big deal? It's easy to put a world constitution together. The University of Chicago wrote a world constitution. In fact, they asked me when I was in Paris to write the preamble to it. Me,
Nice.
not a lawyer, never been to law school, etc., etc. There's a constitution for the Federation of the Earth. People have been working on this for years and years and years. But, you know, everything has its time. And the time is ripe. The time is now. And that's the only moment that exists, not the future, now. So you've got a mandate, and I've got a mandate. And we have to convince everybody else to use that mandate. That's why I'm on this radio show. I got out of the hospital 2 days ago. And I said, can I do this show tonight? And I said, well, I'm too tired. About 3 o'clock, I said, I can't do this show, and so forth. Then I started reading the New York Times about North Korea and so forth. And I said, well, I got to do this show. I got to call up Vibro and get him on and so forth and so on. So anyway, this is all aside. What time are we? Well, we're coming up to the hour. So listen, I'm very, very happy you were on, and we'll do it again. And I've got you. I think you have a very big mission ahead of you. You have made the claim. You know what you're talking about. You have the words. You have the background. You're intelligent. You're philosophically minded. You know about cybernetics. I haven't had a guest on like you, in all the time I've been here.
Thank you so much, Garry. I appreciate the chance to pick your brain again and have enjoyed in a conversation with you and learn as much as I can from you. And I appreciate the opportunity to share my story online. I hope that it gives anyone out there the right nudge to become a world citizen, and I hope that my channel on YouTube, Sol Sistema, serves as a good example of what world citizenship is. And I'm just getting started, so I hope that I do it. I serve it good justice there. And anyone who wants to get in touch with me on that channel. Feel free to. Luckily, I have my background's in technology. I offer free technical support. I think that that's the world we should be living in. Is whatever you learn freely and you give back freely. I truly believe that, and I think that's evident in our founder here, Garry Davis. That's what he's been doing. He learned that he was going the wrong way. He sought the right way, and he's been teaching ever since. And we're lucky to have him. Thanks so much.
Well, I appreciate that, and we are certainly a part of a team now, as every other world citizen is part of the same team. And again, as my guru says, humanity is one. Okay, with that finishing words, I think we're up to time now. And thank you very much, everybody, for listening into this. And take it seriously, because this is serious. That clock is ticking away. I'm not very happy with the headlines of today, etc., but there's still time to bring that primal shift into power, and you are it. So this is Garry Davis signing off, World Citizen News, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.